Well, welcome everybody. This is Dean Val with Dean Kevin in the Shadow today with Reel to Reel movie review. Reel to Reel, where we review movies and discuss how they relate to what's going on in the world and the real universes. Today's movie is They Live, 1988. Okay. And then I'll read a synopsis here for Peter and others, so you give you a reminder. How long ago did you see this, Peter? Oops.
I don't remember seeing it actually.
Okay.
But I do get the whole thing right there. I do get it. I'm going to look at a review. It'll remind me. I must have seen it about 30 years ago. But I'll be right on top of it. Yeah.
Okay.
John Carpenter was a unusual director with the far out there visions. Some of his stuff. He'd
What else
report
did
on
he
some of the
do?
other movies he made as well.
Do you know what else he did?
Hold on for a second. I'll remind myself.
I'm slowing down.
I think he made The Thing as well, and possibly the Hellraiser series. I could be wrong.
The remake of The Thing. It's a remake, yeah.
Okay, the movie kicks off with a man with no name, Nada. In Spanish, nada is nothing, so his name's John Nothing, arriving to the city. I thought it was San Francisco. It looked a lot like San Francisco, but they said it was LA. In search of a job, having lost his previous one in Denver. His first day, he ended up striking out at job placement. But on the second day, he lands a job at a construction site where he is spotted by a man named Frank, who tells him about a homeless camp and invites him to come along. After introducing him to Gil and showing him around, they get to talking over a meal, and we learn a little bit about Frank. Has a family back home in Detroit and had to come due to the steel mills closing down, which left him angry over it. How badly the workers were treated and the overall harshness of life. While Nada still believes in the dream, works hard and plays by the rules and waits for his chance. Later that night, we see a TV program. A group of people are watching as interrupted by what one calls a hacker, warning the people of signals coming through the transmissions and that they are out there and only safe as long as they are hidden. As that is going on, Nada spots the preacher from the day before mouthing along to it. When the feed cuts out, Gil runs up to the preacher and drags him to the church across the street, getting into a visible argument with him. Next time, another hack, which was much shorter, and Gil again runs off to the church with Nada following along. Finding a makeshift lab, a lot of cardboard boxes and choir noises are actually just a radio. Can hear hits and pieces of conversation, but is caught by the preacher who tries to warn him, but he is quick to leave. Seeing a suspicious helicopter flying overhead, which draws them out of the church as well, but leaves as quickly as it arrives. Collecting a pair of binoculars from one of the people at the camp and starts watching them, much to the chagrin of Frank, who wants nothing to do with this, not wanting to risk his job and warns Nada to do the same. That night, and still watching the helicopter return with a full police unit, SWAT team, and bulldozer, overwhelming the church and homeless camp, brutalizing anyone they could catch, including the preacher. Nada barely makes it out, taking shelter in a nearby house with a few others. The next morning, he goes back and gets a box from the church, and to his confusion, finds it filled with black sunglasses. throwing all but one in the trash, putting it on when he hit the street, to find everything turning black and white, billboards and signs saying things such as obey, marry and reproduce, and consume. But worst, when he saw alien disguised as humans, and that is where I will leave it for now. It's funny that I don't know if they purposely did it, but I don't remember any. The aliens aren't doing anything but doing subliminals and control on the humans here, but they're no acts of violence or anything. Just kind of a note there. And then when he starts in on them, he starts shooting them like bugs, like they don't care. But it's just interesting to portray themselves as they're not really violent. They're just like manipulating people. But anyway, I usually give it over to Kevin here, and we kind of play off his comments here. So go ahead, Kevin.
The movie would begin presenting us with the one-dimensional surface world, the physical level, the densest dimension of the overall 5 that make up this particular simulation, with all the awareness beings inhabiting and animating their created personal selves in this simulated creation. A simulated creation that is designed to recognize the isness, the true reality that all awareness actually is, from the comparisons that everything creational represents. To recognize what is this true reality, an absolute everythingness. The established means of doing so is to compare it with that which isn't this absolute everything, which is then created, simulated, cause to effect, sequences of events, of segregation, separation, of individualized body vehicles. For if you removed creation and the consciousness that effects its simulation, you would be this all aliveness, awareness, absent of the simulation it was encased within. But until you recognized this everything true reality that you are, that this awareness is, you really are rather nowhere. Imagine the simulation then as a processor of decided ideas of causality files, the consciousness, the main program, that through the physical body vehicle, the senses, decodes these decided idea files, the consciousness, into a simulated experience, the effects. From computer data files of information applied to your computer to the corresponding game that appears on the screen, with the decided illusion of distance and point to point, and yet the entirety of the consciousness file is present in the same moment, the nowness of the is, but the decided construction of the consciousness applies the individual codings in sequences that roll out as a seeming distance, space, and time, and yet your entire simulation is present in your consciousness, like wearing a virtual reality headset. Everything the game comprises of, is contained within it. But as you place your awareness in your consciousness, as you put on your virtual reality headset, it seems as though you are moving, that there is a distance, that there is the passage of time, and from the real awareness isness position, everything is. There would be no motion, distance, or separation, but this has to be a position of beingness recognized. Hence the illusion of sequential simulation that the consciousness provides. The stage is set then, with our main movie character, played by Roddy Piper, featuring in his particular decided and shared simulation, as of course he inserted the idea files that made his simulated reality. He constructed his consciousness, regardless of the source of the idea files, be they of his creating or those of others, and the corresponding simulation plays out in accordance, and a shared simulation indicating that those that we directly share it with evidently have agreed and decided on the same idea consciousness files, and agreed that they are to feature in each other's simulation also, as the personal selves of others. Their body vehicles are as much idea files as any other created idea that makes up the simulation, and so we add the idea files of others to our consciousness. We agree with them that they are part of our consciousness program, and so becomes a shared simulation. Those that we indirectly share our simulation with, those who don't feature in our personal experience, but share the same planet, say, then there are certain shared files that match the broader themes of the planet and its overall social species consciousness, and a social species planetary consciousness we are all a part of, or we couldn't be participating in its simulation. So everything transpiring in our personal experience with those directly involved with it, to the planet we are on, and to the overall simulator in its entirety, our consciousness is a part of, and so we have contributed, have agreed to, have constructed, and maintain the simulation of, and so we are the effects of everything in the simulator. And so Roddy Piper seems somewhat resigned to circumstances, to the world he is in, to the way it is constructed, to its systems and social consciousness, as he attempts to secure himself a job. But be assured, everything he experiences, as it is with all the personal selves created by any awareness being, is by his design. It must be so, or he wouldn't be experiencing it, as is the design of cause to effect creation, the consciousness providing the simulation exactly as we have constructed it. And how do we have then experiences we rather would not. How is it that this simulator is overall controlled, and the vast majority are enslaved, with the Earthlings as a prime example? As humans find themselves on a planet that is 100% human farmed, and they are merely cattle. Well, evidently, the files that were decided, agreed upon, that were inserted into the consciousness, were of a nature that effected such a simulated experience. Agreement, then, to being controlled, restricted, farmed, locked down, and subjugated. Agreements that have been secured for lifetimes, that carry over and project the same consciousness of agreements into a future simulated physical level experience. Agreements secured either through intimidation, fear, or deception, the marketing of something that appears as beneficial, but is, as the simulation would reveal, anything but. For why else would anyone consciously agree to being controlled, unless that is their decided sensation, as it can be with some? And then, as lifetimes pass on by, so these agreements, the files of the consciousness, are no longer accessible as we assume a new body vehicle with a new memory body that has no references and information that reveals the origins of these agreements, the past lifetimes when they were made. And yet the consciousness overall program is retained from the moment we enter the simulation. It's simply that we are unconscious of that which it comprises of as we transition from lifetime to lifetime, from body vehicle to body vehicle. But the mechanics work as designed. Consciousness construction to effect simulated experience. And so here we are, a designed consciousness matrix of agreement to overall control. Hence the vast majority of those within this simulator at this time in bewilderment as to their restricted and limiting positions, such as Roddy Piper in the movie. But then it's unlikely they would consider how they are the architects of their own predicament, and are likely to apply whatever consideration ideas work for them. It must be God doing it, must be bad karma, this is just how things are, I must be unlucky, etc., where in fact all it is the individual experiencing themselves, their decided and constructed consciousness, irrespective of the source of the ideas, or how and why they were agreed to, in whichever lifetimes they were.
I saw that, well, these glasses are interesting. Of course, on the real side, you don't need glasses. So he's still in the creation worlds, because he needed glasses to see. So both species, both body types, the aliens here and Roddy, the humans basically are still unaware that they become aware. The aliens are already aware of the humans, so they're controlling them through the technology, through the media, etc. and then Roddy becomes aware of them through the glasses, and they're just basically both trying to survive, you know, but they do confront each other. They don't want, the aliens do kill the humans if they are aware that they exist by, you know, the SWAT teams, and they don't want the humans to wake up to that fact. And then when Roddy and the humans, they're just trying to fight back. But I'm just curious, there must be something else to this story, because they seem to get along with each other. The aliens are not doing anything to the humans other than controlling them, but we don't see the rest of the story. They could be eating them or something. What else? Well, we know they are here, but in the movie, they don't really imply anything else besides just the control. But when Roddy does find out, yeah, he starts banging them, you know, destroying them, because they don't want, you know, they don't want him to know about them. So it's just interesting. The whole glasses thing is interesting too. It helped them become aware, but it didn't help them to see really their intent. I don't see, and it wasn't anything about recognition either. It was just awareness, which is the first step here with what we're presenting here with the world. Is like helping people become aware of what's going on, but then the next step is the recognition of more than what's going on. It's like recognition of what is, you know. And Peter, you're back. Do you have any comments?
I was thinking about some of the timeline. That this movie came out in 1984.
88.
88, okay. And 84, you know, George Orwell, or 1984 book that was written in when, the 50s or 60s. And I'm going back there because the original alien invasion movies that were everywhere in the 50s. And the most remarkable, The Day the Earth Stood Still in 51, where the warning of invasion. And The Thing, which is another movie I think John Carpenter made a remake, is covering the same concept of alien invasion, accidental or otherwise, because the thing landed on Earth up in the North Pole. And Carpenter's modern version, I think, is Kurt Russell. I didn't think it was a particularly good one. The original 51 is excellent. And that was the year I was born. And then I grow up in my teens and 20 and reading George Orwell and Animal Farm. And also another one was the book, the story about the boys who get abandoned on an island. And they go back to their original reptilian natures.
Lord of the Flies.
Get abandoned. I forgot the name of it.
Lord of the Flies.
Lord of the Flies, yes. And that was a book we all had to read. We had to read these books. Nowadays in school, they don't have this history. All they have the movies. Anyway, Lord of the Flies, all the stuck on the beach island, and reverting back to a hierarchy that's somehow implanted within their psyches. Let's say the survivalism hierarchy, which you're talking about with the they live. In other words, the aliens are really trying to make sure that they live themselves, and whether the rest of their program to get humanity to procreate or obey, it exists and continues. So it's the history relative that I'm talking about of our lifetime. And then you can date that all the way back to original, what I call the rock man, and Aboriginal, iginal, I call it iginal peoples, or you could go back Neanderthals, and how this reptilian agenda was implanted genetically or otherwise. And it's also something that then comes down to from that time to Atlantis. And there's a lot of stuff out there now about Atlantis and its renewal, revival, or regenerating the history of it to become aware of this agenda. And it's been remonstrated recently with the Pleiadian and the Andromedan councils and visitors. I just saw a ship of a picture supposedly of a rainbow cloud that was a Pleiadian ship, and it was leaving, and the person who sent out the picture said, it made me sad that they were leaving. And I was, I felt stranded, something like that. And, he's all emotional, and it's a beautiful picture in the sky and the clouds, and it looks like a chemtrail operation, but he said this was the Pleiadians that had been communicating with him. And I'm wondering, and they live now, because not remembering everything, was there channeling elements during the movie of the aliens communicating with different beings besides the visual obey and feed and procreate? Anything like that?
No, not that I remember. It was very, very simple, actually.
Right.
But,
Subliminally, you could say it's a subliminal. Subliminal. I mean,
yes, you're tripping over yourself. They did have like reproduce. Why would they do that? Reproduce. There must be a reason why they want the humans to reproduce. They didn't tell you that in the movie. Any kind of hint there. Well, we know why. Well, we know that they use humans as food and slave labor, but in the movie they were like working along with them. They're in the beauty salon with them, and they were doing everything the humans did. But it's subtle, in terms of where this movie really its intent is. It's kind of like scattered a little bit.
They were learning to do what the humans are capable of, partially as their connection with, but also to develop maybe themselves as integrated humans, walk-ins, and that whole concept of invasion by taking over the bodies or the consciousness of the operations of the bodies, and it's all integrated, so it's not a takeover in a sense of we're taking over and you're out of here. It's a whole different way of looking at it. That's very dynamic there to realize that, because I think we're being used relationships wise, family wise, so they want to procreate the families continually in this agenda context, so that you won't want to escape, and you're locked in with your familiars and your group consciousness and friendly love association orientations with the religions and other belief ideas and so forth, social, and especially the social, which is now coming through the social media. orientating sociality, so I got to use this word I'm getting sublimated. But it's perfect. I think I get that's really the context. Whether the movie actually says any of this is it's quite good when you can do it without letting the people know this is our message. In other words, maybe the aliens are working through Carpenter and the directors to get this message through. And also, I will add to that the message of all these movies, how they're projecting into the future, so that humanity will actually create this future of alien invasion and robotic control, artificial intelligence at work, uh, societies that are mass produced and built on Blade Runner associated technologies and concepts. And there it is, it's all a bridge to far away, right here. How about that? They're tricky little monsters, aren't they?
Yeah, they're very clever. If I had a pair of these glasses before I married my second wife, I probably wouldn't have married her if I would have seen who she was, But they come in handy sometimes. Yeah, you wonder how,
That's a hoo-hoo.
It,
Mr. Owl, that's a hoo-hoo.
Hoo-hoo, yeah.
Oops.
You met her at the fair in Mountain View, or a psychic fair, remember?
Did I?
And my son.
I remember that.
Yeah.
With your young son.
Yeah, Michael. Yeah. He was carrying a flute.
I remember meeting some people at the fair. I do remember that.
He was carrying a flute he just bought, and you said, "Let me try it." And then you played it, and then you gave it back to him. He said he was kind of upset because you had put your mouth on it. And he didn't want anything to do with it anymore. That's just a little story.
I don't remember that at all, but
okay.
Very sharp memory, Val.
Okay. Mm-hmm. What? Anyway.
Well, maybe you can remember when you were alienated way back in the past, and that is the reason for remembering, though, is of course to release that tap line and all of that. Like if your son remembered that he didn't want to play flute just because of this strange alien who played his flute.
Mm-hmm.
But then he could let go his fear of playing the flute, which he might still carry with him.
Maybe.
Yeah. Same thing. Yeah. How are you alienated, and what do you remember about it?
Right. Well, anyway, yeah. Let's go on, Kevin. Thank you for that. Yeah. Thanks, Peter.
Sure. Thank you.
Then Roddy Piper would come across a preacher speaking the good word of God, speaking of the evils of the devil, the mention of the serpent, etc. For yes, this is an overall controlled simulation. The control extends through all the dimensions of it, beyond the physical, through to the mental levels, literally speaking, and the being then that the entire matrix of agreement flows to and supports would be the Kalorm God, a being that has such a position based on the agreement he has garnered for it, and to have gotten an entire simulator to prop up his position makes for one rather ambitious, controlling individual indeed. For he and all the minions that maintain his power through the levels of creation and into the physical would take the form of reptilian, as he himself would be. And as the control is creationally extensive, which demands agreement must be equally so. So is it imperative that agreements must be trod through every possible means. And so we have every system of the earth, using earth as our example, representing the reptilians and their created ideas, as they are all, by their construction design. This would include the reptilian created religions in all their forms. This would include the presented opposites of the beings that are the gods, those that oppose them, the devils, the satans, whatever the marketed personality idea that is presented for each respective religion. And as all these systems, all these religions, all these gods and their satanic counterparts, all are reptilian created ideas for control purposes, and all lead to the Kalom god's door, as agreements that maintain his position. What we find is that gods and the devils are the same being, and all represented by the Kalom. For he wants everyone's agreements, and thus practically every idea circulating in creation is infected with reptilian controlling ideas that translate as agreements to the Kalom. So in a sense, the preacher is correct, as he speaks of a serpentine influence through all of humanity's woes, but praying and begging to a God who is the same reptilian overlord is unlikely to provide any solutions any time soon, other than to remain in creation, in perpetuated, controlled, and restricted circumstances, through overall what are agreements through the consciousness to the Kalom God. They have recruited the rich and the powerful, said the preacher, and indeed the systems are constructed that only those that serve the controlling overall matrix, in regards to maintaining human and simulator control, will be rewarded for doing so. The greater your contribution to the controlled maintenance of the simulator, the greater will be your circumstances from a materialistic wealth and privilege perspective, and those that do accumulate wealth, absent of being associated with the controlling systems, they are soon approached, coerced, encouraged to fuel their resources into human control, and thus can be expected to become all the more wealthier for it. And should they refuse, well, they will simply have their wealth stripped, be intimidated, threatened, or even killed. So quite naturally, the systems on earth are set up that wealth and privilege goes hand in hand with control, and should you refuse to be a part of the controlling systems, then you won't be wealthy for long, and lifetimes spent along decided controlling lines will continue to project experience that effects always positions where the individual is in a position to continue to control and to be a part of the controlling systems. So individuals born into wealthy, royal, controlling families is no accident or coincidence. They simply are the effects of their consciousness. A consciousness then decided along controlling lines, and thus this is their simulated experience, and endless projected lifetimes into families of privilege and controlling royalty will be expected. The owners have us. They are our masters. They are all around you, said the preacher. And yes, this is indeed so, though not from the perspective view of a personal self that only can see the surface simulation, a surface simulation that is managed to look as unthreatening and uncontrolling as possible, though really it has reached a point where the control of humanity is rather blatant, but people always decide and consider the simulator they are in to be however they think that it is. What may seem as a caged imprisonment to one can seem quite the opposite to another. Such is the power of each individual's decided view of their circumstances. For most, it's just business as usual. The social consciousness is as it is, the 9 to 5 jobs, all the systems in the world that are destroying the natural environment, that even despite the obvious signs, people convince themselves is not so. For as humanity begins to wake up, so any awareness of first the control systems and then the nature of creation and recognition of the real awareness beyond that is a threat to the controllers, as it represents a potential retraction of the agreements they require to maintain their controlled simulation. As such, a species straining at their bars tend to be destroyed along with their planet, and with the consciousness maintained to agreements of control, the eliminated masses are simply projected into future lifetimes and still in controlled circumstances, just on a different planet. From the controller's perspective, then, better to kill them and destroy their planet, have them then return into future unconscious lifetime slavery positions, than risk losing their agreement as they wake up and become more aware. Hence why the agenda now is complete human species destruction and of the planet they inhabit. So all systems are designed for this purpose, and with the agreements, subconscious and conscious, through the masses, that this be then the simulated shared experience for humanity. In the meantime, keep the masses distracted through all means necessary, the phenomena, the entertainments, the TV, which also serves as a subconscious programming tool, as it was designed for, again to secure a simulated reality that the controllers desire. And so, as Roddy Piper would sit in an alley watching a TV through a window, it is so that, yes, all that are involved in then these entertainment systems, the movies, the games, are a part of this controlling system. They are either conscious or unconscious of their contribution in maintaining humanity's enslavement and restriction and the escalation of it, but contributors to it they are, and as such, the vast majority of all those we see throughout the entertainment industry, those on the television screens, providing us with our distractions, subliminal programming movies, and controlled information in regards to news, etc., will be reptilian, or associated with them. It's unlikely you will get anywhere near appearing on the TV screens of the masses at this time in human history, unless you are part of the controlling systems, are reptilian, or are bought off by the reptilians, willingly or unwillingly.
It's almost like this is like a one side of the control factor or the matrix. This movie is like showing you one scenario, one kind of plot line of the whole part of the matrix. There's so many parts to it of the control here. So this is like a one little segment of it. Very little part, but it's part of it for us to see that there's something more going on. And yes, the elites are always recruited here, or that you become an elite by agreeing to their control, and then you get the benefits. And that's always been the way all through history here. And it's shown very well in this movie, and how they come upon into the party and they have a chance to become part of the program there, but they instead break up the party. And this, I just want to go into this fight scene that lasted 6 minutes or more, where Peter, if you remember, that Roddy fights with his friend, this black friend. He tries to make him put on the glasses so he can see too. It's kind of like what we're doing here with the people here. It's like, what does it take for you to see what's going on, you know? And this demonstrates like it's a long fight scene, trying to get these glasses on so that his friend can see what's going on. And Roddy says, give you a chance, either put on these glasses or start eating that trash can. So there's a lot of pain involved. It implies there's a lot of pain involved in waking up here, but there really isn't, but usually is. I mean, we usually have to go through our experiences and our resistance to waking up. And this is a very good example how we don't really force people to wake up. That's not, we don't care, you know, it's free will. Everybody has free will, but this is kind of a brutal wake up for this black guy, but we don't use violence or harm people, but we bring it around so they can kind of see it in different angles or different viewpoints. But this movie demonstrates how that's one way you can beat it into this. I mean, the guy got beat up, the black guy, to where Roddy just put the glasses on him forcibly so he could see what's going on. Everything became black and white too. Once the glasses were on, then he could see the zombie reptilians walking around. Peter, anything? Do you have anything, a comment on that segment?
I don't know. It was a long walk to get from here to there.
It's slow.
I actually do have a comment, or at least I thought of the movies that are always involved with what I call a blood cult review, where they're showing pain and emotional or otherwise. And so there's this challenge, what have you, and camera ready ever. So we'll have you look at the turtle. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm messing up here. The thing is, the alien contract and their way of working around the contract for their own benefit is very similar to what's going on with the entire legal system and its profession. Also, the copyright of movies and of ideas. This is our idea, and if you want to use that idea, then you are obfuscated in certain directions, which may not be your actual interpretation of that idea. So, this I think relates in the alien and the humans that were being objectified. Is that correct, do you think, in the movie? And presented with a choice, or how they would combat the choice. They always had the choice which side they're going to play on, even though their best benefit would not to be playing on any side. And that is, I don't know how much of it is an issue in the movie. Does that regard the movie in your view? What I'm saying?
What's the question again?
The objectivity of the combatants, on the aliens or the humans that were being alienated, and the aliens themselves, I think also, how they're interpreting the idea that they're wanting to continue the existence of their life and their context of integration with the society or elimination of the society. The same thing where they're polarized in their view of which side they will take. And the humans have a choice in a number of places in the movie. Is that correct? Which side they're going to go with?
Yeah, particularly when they met the elites at the party, the big party. They were given an opportunity to join the aliens, Roddy and his black friend.
Right. Yeah. So that's another subliminal view there that's kind of hidden in a way, but it's also presented that they're given a choice. And is their choice basically elimination or integration, one or the other?
You could say that, yes.
Right. Like a Borg takeover, concept, yeah, which is common also, where there's really what's being presented about the invasion is you really don't have a choice, or there's no resistance, and or total acceptance, and that's natural, because actually the only way to progress is to be totally invested one way or the other. Otherwise, you ain't going to make it, and you won't survive in the spiritual sense, if you want to use that word, or physically in this lifetime and so forth, or survive within the social context that you're existing in. You'll be moved out and told to leave, live or live or not live. And what do they say? Stay in the United States, love it or leave it.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned the law, and Dwayne and I are watching Suits now and then on Netflix. Suits, it's a lawyer firm, very high-end lawyer firm, and how they play play the game. And that's what the reptilians are basically creating, this playing field, their own playing field, their own game, so that they can maneuver better and control people. And that's kind of the name of the game. Create your own playing field and game so that you have better advantage, you know. And it's really not about any game at all, but people are buying into the game. See how fun sports are and games to people. It's an entertainment. It's all about like having fun, which is fine, but it's like a trap in a sense to enslave people to something that's not real. And this movie or this Netflix series Suits, it's like there's no trees, nothing. It totally happens in New York. There's no mention of nature anywhere. So they have you away from what's real. You know, nature at least demonstrates what's real. Totally away from that. So they create their own laws, their own formulated system of how things work, reality, what have you. So that you're totally, nature is foreign to you. You know, we would like to see people get back to something resembling supporting nature, not something, you know, virtual and all this stuff in space that you don't see any trees in space or anything. So this is it's okay, everything's okay, but losing touch with nature is like nature is a cool thing to have around to show you how things work. You know, nature supports itself, it's self-sustaining. The systems are not. The systems are controlled by somebody. And once you get inside the system, you are controlled and you really have no choices. Like you said, Peter, it's either do or die, either with it or not with it. So we're giving people the opportunity to see more. There's so much more to life than what is normally given to people here.
Yeah, thanks, Val. I'm just going to interject. My turtle is saying, you know what? The slow wins the race, and the universal and the long, eternal, whatever view. And the turtle carries the whole universe on its back and its shell. I don't know if you knew that. There's a whole zodiac of its symbolisms in its 28 by 13 shell. But anyway, you know, my turtle's agreeing with you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's certainly the long run. We're in it for the long term here. There's really no end point, like a lot of religions claim. There can be, but it's an endless journey. So get ready for, you know, have stamina, endurance for the long run, because otherwise you'll be sucked back into creation, sucked back into something that you're attached to, and you just have to do it over again until you figure it out. So here we are. Okay, Kevin.
And then we would have in the movie the transmissions through the televisions, the warnings in the movie of the control of humanity, the control that is maintained as humanity remains docile, sedated, and distracted. In other words, the controllers wish to keep everyone one-dimensionally focused, of chasing ideas in creation, of not looking beyond or becoming aware of anything other than the surface illusion of the physical. For then the masses will remain in and with the personal self-consciousness, in agreement with it, and it is a consciousness overall that has been designed into agreement to control that the overall simulated experience of being controlled be so. only if individuals decide to become aware of more than their current controlled consciousness is agreement then removed from it, and the possibility then of seeing, being aware of more, deciding differently, and a simulated experience other than the controlled effect of the controlled consciousness can be so. But to decide differently, the first stage is to be aware of the control system, and through awareness can not only the control systems become apparent, but that which is the force behind the systems, the creators of the ideas that the systems are, can be known. For the personal self is multi-dimensional. The 5 aspects of it express as the various life levels, and all these life levels and dimensional positions of the simulation can be explored through the real awareness, a real awareness that is an overall isness awareness reality, that is through all creation and consciousness, can everything the simulator comprises of be known. This would include the controllers, the various and endless expressions and forms they take, and all the way to the Kalom God himself, the 4th mental level reptilian overlord. And although then the surface world can appear as it does to the personal self, the front can seem beneficial and is marketed to be so, the intentionality of the ideas behind the surface can be anything but. In regards to the created systems of the earth, as the idea is destruction of the planet and its people, so will the view from a real awareness that can read every idea through all aspects of any personal self-consciousness, the agenda and intent behind every created idea, so can this be in contrast to what the ideas seem to present as, on the surface, that to a personal self, absent of the real awareness overview, can only consider the appearance of things, and not the intent behind them. The simulation we all collectively share must be the effect of the overall consciousness, and as it is a consciousness of control, of distorted ideas of restriction, this rather effects as a simulator compacting and deteriorating, a very dark simulator at this time, and viewed from the real awareness, all life levels are blanketed in a forbidding and ever expanding darkness. For the personal self, however, the simulation appears however it is decided, however the consciousness is designed that perceives it, and so it may not look necessarily as it actually is, and indeed, to the human body vehicle personal self, this prevalent blackness seems absent from that which it is perceiving. For non-human alien species, the planet Earth looks to their personal self-perceptions as a ball of blackness, floating in a black simulated space, just as it looks to the real awareness aside from a personal self that has been programmed to perceive the world in a way contrary to its actuality. For yes, agreements to the controllers allows them not only the ability to manage the consciousness of humanity to effect their designed simulation, but to manage the perceptions of the human physical body that decodes the consciousness into a simulation, the simulation that we perceive, and so, as an additional means of control, so through the agreement permissions have they made adjustments to all human perception apparatus, the senses, that a kind of cyberspace overlap is placed like a veil over the simulation as it actually is, a little like the Matrix movie, where the world seemed as it did until the individual was unplugged from the Matrix and the world looked rather different. So it is here that every human has this cyberspace overlap obscuring the darkness of this realm of the simulation and the planet Earth we are in, an overlap that isn't applied to other species, hence the aliens' ability to see through their physical vehicle senses the simulation as it actually is. But regardless of this human physical vehicle adjustment, the inclusion of this cyberspace overlap through the real awareness, we have a view that is aside from any limitation imposed upon the physical vehicle, and through the real awareness we can see the Earth and the simulator overall as the non-human species can, as that which is shrouded in an oppressive darkness. The movie very much would touch upon this, that a signal was broadcasted that overlaid the reality of the human experience, with a surface overlap that wasn't real or as it actually is, and indeed the planet Saturn does broadcast frequencies that are received by the moon, which is a hollowed out reptilian space station and surveillance system, and that also then beams and amplifies these Saturn sent frequencies onto the Earth. The frequencies are for control purposes, and very likely are involved in the cyberspace overlap maintenance that may have the senses perceiving a simulation that is overlapping the simulator and the Earth as it actually is. The sunglasses Roddy Piper would acquire allowed him then to block out the cyberspace overlap inducing frequencies seemingly, that he could see the world as it actually was. He could see the subliminals behind the surface, as everything is subliminals, the obey signs, for example, that suddenly became apparent. So maybe the sunglasses were symbolic of the real awareness, the ability to see aside from a programmed and cyberspace overlap altered consciousness, and the adjusted personal self sensory perceptional apparatus, and then not only would he see the intentionality, the ideas, the agenda behind the surface visual front of all the earthly systems and buildings, but would see the controllers behind their outward human appearances also. For yes, all the world controllers in their various positions, in all the various controlling systems, are generally reptilian, but for public appearances they assume human forms, as reptilians are masterful shapeshifters. Perhaps again, forms that would be more apparent were the overlapping cyberspace inducing frequencies nullified, but more so through a real awareness that can see everything as it actually is, and not what it appears to be on the surface. That despite a reptilian being able to shift its form to human, through the real awareness will be revealed the actual species of the individual, as the real awareness can read everything of the ideas throughout all the aspects of the personal self that makes up the consciousness of any created personal self in creation. And so, the entire movie really is a look behind the surface, behind the wizard's curtain, to not only the control of humanity that is concealed by a marketed surface front of what seems a beneficial and necessary structured world, that not only is everything a subliminal bombardment that impacts the subconscious and helps maintain then the agreements to the controllers, but that which controls the planet also are beings whose body types are not human. In the movie, they rather looked like corpses. In reality, the controlling force is reptilian. But then, a corpse represents that which is old, dead, outdated, as the agreements to the reptilian controllers surely are. Old ideas that stagnate the awareness, that lock the consciousness into routines of ideas that stem back eons, that make no sense with life, that are restricting, and that compound, and in turn effect a deteriorating overall simulator. And as the creators of these tired, old, dead ideas, that effect tired and repetitive experience overall, the reptilians could very well be represented as being as dead as the ideas they maintain agreement to through the masses on a subconscious and conscious level.
What we use is the NUUU. We don't use glasses, but our glasses are the NUUU to see through the firmament, or this cloaking device that the aliens, the reptilians, have to disguise what they're doing. So the NUUU is one way to get beyond creation, at least begin to get beyond creation. Creation is very convincing to people here. It's very, because we have our five senses, and it's the reality here is very convincing. So people are stuck in it because it's so real. But there's more reals. Have you ever had a dream that's more real than here? Many people say that. I had a dream last night. It's even more real than being here. And that is so true. You know, that's so right on, because the reality of life is very real, and it's so real people don't even want to go there. It's too scary for most of people, because you need to be the risk taker to see beyond what you think you know. And also, we're helping people to with right references. The references are very important. Like, what is your idea of things? People get into these ideas which refer to other ideas and other ideas, and pretty much you got a stack of ideas that don't mean anything. You're just believing and having faith in an idea, which started as an idea, and then you build upon that, and it becomes really distorted everything, and you have no real frame of reference. But what Dwayne the Great Writer is doing, Kevin here, Peter, we're giving references to people so they can figure out their way through this complex creation, which it's really not. That's why the NUUU makes it, you get to focus with this NUUU. That's like your light, your glasses, you know, to focus through this matrix. You'll be there, but you won't recognize it yet. And the key is, like with the NUUU, you'll be there. You're already there. Now it's just a matter of you have the right reference. Now it's just a matter of recognizing where you are. And that's a matter of getting through yourself and through your ideas and all the beliefs you've created for yourself. And that's a huge process, but at least start with the NUUU, and it'll give you a great reference to work off of. And it's different than the other words, the mantras that we've had through history. The hue, the om, and all this other thing, abracadabra. It's the real connection to a real reality. And Peter, do you have any last words of wisdom or anything else?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm subliminated and been subliminated. But I understand. I find when I'm most aware, and there isn't any thinking or considering or sensing actually to accomplish or to do from that point on. I mean, I've been noticing that in my education process. Yes, it's interesting. You know, the mirror is up, and the alien cutoff is always on, and so like I saw you for a second, and then there was no sound, and then you moved forward from the camera and got up close, and it was almost like the delay was an operation of this technology, but the technology is being obfuscated and dominated, so that the delay factor is on purpose, because they're actually working with the 5G and the satellite and what have you. And I just started getting alien helicopters coming overhead, by the way. Here they come. It's a bombing mission.
Okay.
Right overhead, really low.
You still with us, Peter?
Oh, man.
Okay.
You see, it's illegal for them to do that. It's totally illegal. They do it all the time. Military is not spending any connection to their ethics, none whatsoever. And this is the constant state. The same thing with the invasion of the internet and so forth. The whole issues, the legal issues, and so forth and so on. So even these movies that are being produced, they take over the movies that they have allowed to be produced with their money, and Hollywood money, and then it's no longer really in the hands of the director or the producer, and there are very few that have taken control of it themselves. Very few.
Mhm.
And so what happens is then how they're going to deliver the movies to the public is limited. And or that they will squash a certain movie through certain channels of getting viewed. And therefore, there's the limitation right away at the beginning and then during the production and during the outlay. And this is an experience there. I just wanted to add with the ending of the movie. Could you comment about what actually happened to the humans, or this most peculiar or special
Yeah, there could have been a
part there?
sequel because, like I mentioned, well, I didn't mention Roddy destroyed the media center there that was broadcasting this cloaking device that was preventing the humans from seeing their real form and all the subliminals. So once he destroyed that broadcasting station, all the humans could see what was going on. So there could have been a sequel to that and see what the humans did with that.
Right, I see. And the humans were not really destroyed. Very few were killed, correct?
Right. It really didn't show except for the onslaught for the humans that were aware. If you weren't aware, you weren't being destroyed, according to the movie. Only if you knew what they were up to,
Right.
saw their real form, then you were gotten rid of.
Yeah. This is another one of the techniques that they are using through the medium of the TV, which is only 2 dimensions per se. There is no depth. So they can present the message, they can tell the story as truthfully as you can, but it's only getting received in 2 dimensions in the human audience. And the little box, they have put the true reality into the little box. And now everyone thinks the box is the true reality. And that is exactly what they're doing with the human race here with the technology and the media bombardment and advertising domination and copyright legality, so-called. So yeah, it's very apparent once you see it and know it, but then to communicate that when everybody is now in the 2-dimensional, it's all they've got, this polar brain of 2 sides of the brain that is all there can hold the image, just like when we receive images from the world, it goes into our eyes, it crisscrosses back in the retina and then reverses and comes back to our brain. It looks as if it is what it is, but it actually is not the real image at all. Of course, it's what we're seeing, we think we're seeing, but it's not the real thing. And that whole mechanism, that's the alien technology at work there as well, with how we actually are aware in what we think we're being aware with. And that's through the senses and the limited dimensionality of the mind, body, and soul, or emotions, that is, those are our vehicles of awareness. And the true vehicle of real awareness is at that 5th level that cognizes the whole and sees the big picture, just like if you see the Warner Brothers show their logo, or Universal shows their logo and go, oh, wow, this is so big. But all they're thinking is it's on the TV, but they're thinking, wow, this is big. And what we're really getting is this, mental reference, per se, an intellectual or a visceral view of the true reality. And in that sense, what you're talking about, they live, that's a really very good example because it's in the movie and through the movie. And it's a very microscopic, claustrophobic, small group of awareness people. And that also presents the difficulty of sharing the real to real, the real to REAL, where we're up to here. A little sneaky. We got to do it too, though. Thank you, Val.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks for being here. And Kevin, any last words from you? Thank you for setting that up, Kevin.
Right, nothing further from me.
Okay, well, that was Real to Real. Today we did They Live, 1988 movie. And next week, do we have a movie or should we do Emerald Forest, like Peter suggested? Okay, let's do that.
Well, I'm okay, but what did you have on your docket?
Yeah, that's fine. Emerald Forest, let's do that one. Emerald Forest, within 85,
Do you have a
1985.
copy to view? Do you have a copy to view?
I can get it, yeah.
Will you watch it?
Yeah, I'll be watching it.
Cool.
Kevin will.
Wow.
Okay, thank
Right.
you, everybody,
Thanks,
for
Val.
being here. We're going to do the NUUU, and then we're going to go on to Kevin's Great Witness show in about 40 minutes. It takes me a while to upload this one. NUUU. Peter.
No.
Kevin.